Welcome back, everybody. We're back here with the 3rd Heavy Brigade Combat Team, 3rd ID, from Fort Bennings, Georgia, here in Iraq. And we are here with Captain Charles Barrett, and he is the Brigade Public Affairs Officer. Welcome, Captain Barrett, to talk to you here.
Thank you very much for having me, Bob.
Well, thank you for having us here, too. We really enjoy getting these stories in.
Well, without your assistance, it makes it a lot more difficult to tell the stories, and obviously we want to reach the widest audience possible, so the more media folks we can get here to help us tell the story, the better.
Appreciate that. Why don't we start out telling the people that are watching this on YouTube about yourself. Talk a little bit about how long you served, a little bit about your military career, a little bit about where you're from, family.
I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and I went to college at St. Joseph's College in Indiana, a small town called Rensselaer. After that, I went to Hollywood, and I tried to be an actor for 3 years. That plan fell through after I got one line in a movie, and then that's when I came back active duty. I went to Fort Bennings for OCS. I went to Fort Knox for the Armor Captain's Career Course, and I was an armor officer. So my first assignment was Fort Carson, Colorado, with the 3rd Brigade Combat Team, 4th ID.
Where are we going next?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I did one tour in Iraq with that unit during OAF 1, and then after that I went to the Captain's Career Course for armor. Came over on my second tour to Iraq on a transition team, and we were assigned to the Motor Transport Regiment, the Iraqi 10th Army Division Motor Transport Regiment. I think we did that for about 2 months, and then we ended up going to Baghdad to the National Police Headquarters. I ended up on the National Police Headquarters QRF transition team. So that rounded out my second deployment. My third deployment, of course, is the one I'm currently on, the 3rd Brigade. So I became Public Affairs Officer in between my second and third deployment.
Okay, well this is good because we want to get the transition story. We want to show the American people that they've done a lot of progress. So let's talk about from the first, second, and third deployment. Just show the progression of Congress and USA.
Our first deployment, we rolled through Baghdad on tanks. And it was a show of force. And this was the tail end of, I think you might recall, the Shock and Awe campaign. We didn't see combat really for the first 2 months, and it took a while before the insurgency really started to come about. When it did, they came out in full force, and we were in a small company level FOB, and we came under contact on a very regular basis. We didn't lose any soldiers. That's a great thing. My company did an outstanding job during that deployment. We caught a lot of bad guys, but everything was combat oriented, catching bad guys. As we like to say, kicking in doors is usually the term that we use. The second deployment that I went on with the transition team was it was a show of progress. I had a year break, so I had a year deployed and a year break, and now I'm back over here again. And before you redeploy back to Iraq, they tell you, hey, Iraq's changed. You got to be careful. You got to watch out. It's not like it used to be. The rules of engagement are different, and you don't necessarily realize that until you actually get in the country and you see that. So we got in the country and we saw that. I mean, it was apparent that things had changed. I say changed for the better. Here I was doing the job of kicking in the doors during my first deployment. My second deployment, I'm working with the Iraqi security forces. They're the ones that are doing the work. We're just advising them, facilitating them, and helping them, in any way we can. They're trying to stand up their security forces so that they can take over and do that job. That deployment, we worked on a soldier-to-soldier level, meaning we worked with each of their individual soldiers. This third deployment, which was I had a 2-year break in between my second deployment and my third deployment, and now what we do is we're training at a much higher level. So we're teaching their leaders, and then in turn their leaders are teaching their own soldiers. We call that a train-the-trainer program. So you can see that progress as far as the training goes. And we used to train them on very basic soldier skills. Now they've elevated, they've gone up to the next level. They're working on more things that are more critical to the battlefield, intelligence gathering. They do now warrant-based targeting operations. So instead of, we suspect a bad guy and we go out and get him, now they actually have to go to a judge and they have to say, this is the evidence we have, we'd like you to sign a warrant, and then they have to go out and arrest the bad guy. It's not really capture the bad guy, they have to arrest him and then we'll go on trial. So that's part of the rule of law fight. So we take everything from OAF 1, which was combat operations, to moving into stability operations now through the last several years, where you have to encompass the rule of law, not just combat operations, but rule of law, intelligence, medical. We do a lot of medical training, civil capacity building. So now we have the provincial reconstruction teams, and they're also supporting, and we support them. So we've got a lot of other factors that we didn't have during OAF 1. OAF 1 was very simple. OAF 7 is a lot more dynamic. When they say the mission's changed, the mission has changed. And it's a great thing to be able to see the progress that we've made. It's taken a while, but you know what? The average insurgency probably lasts between 9 and 10 years, if I had to guess. And I think we're doing pretty good here. So that's it.
Okay. We're hearing more now the term transition. Can you talk about that one?
Yes. You've got a transition. The terminology used to be combat operations. So the terminology is combat operations. And now we're moving into stability operations. So there's a couple of things that you have to consider when you're looking at that. This is not a one day we wake up and we're no longer in combat. We had the last unit just left, 4-2 Striker Brigade, the last combat troops out of Iraq. And I hear a lot of the discussions online about people saying, what do you mean? We still have troops over there. Well, of course we have troops. We have combat-capable troops that are able to support the current mission. The change isn't in the soldier, it's in the mission. Our soldiers aren't in the lead. We conduct no unilateral operations. All of our operations are conducted in partnership with our Iraqi security forces. That's a critical difference, which I think a lot of folks might be missing.
Okay, let's go ahead and we're going to take a break here and start another segment so we get this right on YouTube, and we'll go right back to that, okay?
Great.
Okay, once again, this is Bob Calvert here in Iraq on TalkingWithHeroes.com. Stay tuned for part 2.